it's interesting that you bring this up, because I was going to ask you, because I know that you are a virtual encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to conducting risk assessments and being able to foretell the future is what you're doing. But here we are embroiled in Ukraine, not directly, or at least not publicly, with troops. Same with Israel. So we have those two very important issues going on. We've got Taiwan that is hanging there in the balance, and I'm quite positive that there's at least one or two other locations that nobody even has on their radar right now. What are your perceptions and your thoughts on this time next year in the Ukraine and Israel?
Okay, well, this time,
or will there be a next year?
This time next year, if we aren't all dead and we haven't all stuck our heads between our legs and kissed our ass goodbye because of a nuclear thermic war, I would say two things. Either the war in Ukraine is finished, in which case you guys will still be pumping money into it so that BlackRock and Vanguard can buy up all the land there, agricultural land, and the Germans will, well, the Germans have already decided they're going to send in Rheinmetall, which is the company that makes the tanks. BA Systems have said they're going to build an arms factory there, etc., etc. So what's going to happen is following. There is no way in hell that Ukraine can win, no matter how many bodies are thrown into the war. It's just not feasible. So that means that if the US government and the rest of the stupid, crazy world that follows them continues on the path that it's going, there will be nothing left of Ukraine. There will be no Ukrainians left apart from the ones that have left and gone to Europe, or to the States, or wherever they've gone. Nothing will exist in Ukraine. Russia will win. There's no two ways about it. So what you're going to have is a dead, deserted, no man's land between Russia and NATO. There'll be nothing there. Because
it's a super Chernobyl.
Wow, that's pretty impactful what you're saying.
That's one way of seeing it, yeah. Because Russia, and they've said it from the very beginning, they said it after the fall of the war, when the Warsaw Pact basically disintegrated, and who the hell was it? It was when Reagan went to Berlin and said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear this wall down, or whatever he said. Tear down the wall. Yeah. And NATO promised Russia not 1 more inch eastwards. I've seen that on paper, and everybody's saying, oh, they didn't, well, nothing was written down, etc., etc. I have paper here on my computer that shows exactly what was said. It's an official communique. So, let's get back to Ukraine. Well, Russia is no way going to allow NATO forces next to its border. Now, if they have to destroy all of Ukraine to achieve that, they will. Yeah, Putin is not going to back down. Yeah, and if it gets to the point that NATO decides, fuck it, we're going to go into Ukraine and send troops and send planes, etc., etc., well, that's going to be Armageddon, because there will be a third world war. And America is the only country in the world that has a first strike policy for nuclear weapons. I don't know if you knew that. But if they do...
Explain that to our listeners.
What do you mean by first strike?
Means that America has given itself the freedom to press the red button before anybody else. It's not a defense mechanism. It's not in a matter of defense. Russia has said, and they will only do it if their country is under acute threat. Yeah. Now, what we've seen at the moment is not acute threat. But America, in its wisdom, that's sarcasm, by the way, has the right to be able to say, okay, we're going to carry out a tactical nuclear strike on Russia to stop the war. Well, this is the kind of stupid politics that will possibly kill everybody in Europe, certainly a lot of people in the States, a lot of people in Russia and the surrounding areas in Europe. Australia, New Zealand, no problem. Yeah. They'll get theirs in the end because all of the chemical waste and rubbish and ashes and everything will flow down their way. So talking about the end of the world, basically. Being bombed back to the Stone Age, that's got nothing like it. You know? That's the first scenario. The second one is that Zelensky's gotten rid of. Somebody gets rid of him. Be it his own people, which I can possibly see, or somebody else, external. Yeah, on the orders of a nation, on the orders of a government, an external government. The next person that comes in and takes his place will then start peace talks. And that's the best case scenario. Yeah.
So you think, it sounds to me like what you're saying, Costa, is we need to butt out of that. The U.S. needs to get out of that.
Shouldn't have even been there in the first place. Shouldn't have been there in the first place. It's not your war, it's not my war, it's not anybody's war apart from Russia and Ukraine. Fuck NATO, I'm sorry. NATO is a toothless tiger, basically. It's like the UN. NATO is only good for the arms manufacturers in the UK, Germany, France, and obviously the States. That's the only reason they're there. It's got nothing to do about the North Atlantic Treaty Organization anymore. Since the fall of the USSR, it's changed its manifesto. It's now not doing what it should be doing. It's getting involved in things that it shouldn't be getting involved in.
What about agents? Yeah. What about, John, the argument that I hear all the time is people say, well, if we leave Russia, then we're just going to allow Putin to be the next Hitler, and today's Ukraine, tomorrow's. What is the truth there? Is there a valid argument there?
I think from what I've done, the studies I've conducted, the light research I've done, that is stemming from what I believe to be a propaganda move. And they attribute, or they try to liken Putin invasion to Hitler. Well, I think they need to turn the mirror the other direction. Kostas, can you shed any light on that? Because I believe that that's one area where Russia has been vilified in the Western press, and I'm not quite sure that's exactly how it is.
Okay, let me start off this. The Western press. Okay, they're not journalists anymore, they're PR. That's all they are. They're PR, public relations guys for governments that basically command what they write. First. Second, Putin once said, those who miss the USSR have no heart. Those who want the return of the USSR have no brain. Russia has no interest in invading other countries, especially not NATO countries, because they know damn well it would give NATO an opportunity to start an all-out war, which is somebody nobody wants. Putin is not stupid. He's a very, very intelligent guy, actually. In fact, I'd put him against any of the Western leaders. He's one of the greatest statesmen that I've known, him and Lavrov, since he got into office. I would put him among the top ones. So this is all a big bluff and a lot of PR on the part of Western governments to blind their nation's populations into accepting the increases in food, the increases in fuel, the increases in electricity, the increases in this, that, and the fucking other. Oh, it's all for the war against Russia. You got to remember that. We're all going against Putin. You only have to open up the Daily Mail, which is a British newspaper, or the Express, and you'll find that shit on the first page every day of the week, on the front page. Yeah. So, no, I'm sorry. Putin, in my opinion, now I've been called a turncoat, I've been called a traitor, I've been called many things in my opinions, but I stand by them. The man does not want to take over the world. He's not after his country's former glory. He's got enough problems at home. He doesn't want to take the problems of other countries. He certainly doesn't want Ukraine. It's a shithole. What's he going to do with Ukraine? The only thing he wants and wanted to do is protect the Russian speakers that had called on him for help. He didn't jump in and the very first shot was fired. He waited and tried diplomatic. He tried diplomacy. They worked on the Minsk agreements. The Germans, Merkel, Sarkozy? No, it was Hollande, the French guy. They got the Minsk Accords signed. And if Zelensky had stuck to them, we wouldn't have any problems in Ukraine at the moment. The Russian-speaking areas.
It's interesting to get that perspective.
The Russian-speaking areas were supposed to have had autonomy to do basically whatever they wanted to do, but still be under the government of Kiev. But Kiev didn't want that. No, we want all of it. Well, you know what? How'd you like them apples now? Because Putin doesn't want the problems. He's got enough problems at home. They have enough mineral resources. Their trade deficit has gone down. The sanctions against Russia aren't working. Europe's gotten poorer. The States have got poorer. Russia's economy is on the up. All of the companies that left Russia because of the sanctions, Russian companies took over. They're still operating. They're still selling the same shit they were selling before, just under a different name. No, Putin is not interested in occupying other countries. That's my opinion, and it's always been my opinion from the very beginning. So, to answer your question, John,
Well, I think
it's propaganda.
It did. And I think specifically the piece that I was aiming at is that in the West, they claim that that Putin or some of his troops are actually Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
That they are perpetrating the same crimes as the Nazis, and that they wear the propaganda that the Nazis wore, or the swastika. They have tattoos, and I'm under the impression that it might be the other way around.
Well, the Ukrainians, as we know, they had the Azov battalion. They were Nazis, neo-Nazis, whatever you want to call them. We'll come to Bucha, the atrocities in Bucha. We see Ukrainians blamed on the Russians blamed on the Ukrainians. I've seen the evidence. I've seen the evidence that the Russians put forward. It's very easy to find. Nobody wants to read it. No, it was the Russians. Of course, if you're in the West and it's your government's political policy to say Russia bad, Ukraine good, well, obviously anything that Russia says, no, that's bullshit. It's Russian propaganda. Obviously.
So
obviously, John.
I think our listeners.
Obviously, in any war, there are crimes committed. I don't care which army. I mean, take the New Zealand SAS in Afghanistan, killing military-aged males, civilians. Extrajudicial killings. Is that a war crime? Of course it is. The British AS, the British SBS. So in any war, there are crimes. That doesn't mean to say the whole army or that the government of the day is behind it. When you're in a war, the tensions are running high. He just shot my friend. He just shot my brother. Fuck you, bang. We all know how it goes, John. So, I mean, obviously, I think there have been atrocities committed on both sides. I think, though, that Ukraine is playing up and churning out propaganda and, what shall we say, putting on a stage for Western journalists when they called them in and showed them these atrocities. They made sure that the atrocities were in place before they called journalists in. So
it's interesting.
Well, and that's the sway the general public to support the political activity that would continue to provide funds. And
that happens a lot. I mean, doesn't that happen also with Israel right now?
It is, and
they're both trying to sway our stance with the media, but look at the atrocities that one is committing against the other.
Right.
Do you feel the same way, Costa, about Israel and what's going on there? Is there a right and a wrong
No,
there?
there's definitely a right and a wrong. The wrong is that Israel is bombing the shit out of Gaza, and they've killed, I think, upwards of 20,000 civilians. That's what the wrong is. Now, the right is, okay, Israel has a right of self-defense. I won't deny that. And Hamas should not have gone and did what they did. But I don't think that what Israel is doing by trying to drive all the Gazans out of Gaza into Egypt, there's a story going around. I don't know how true it is. I'm supposing this supposition at the moment that Israel wants to build a new canal from Israel, which would be from the Mediterranean into the Red Sea, to bypass basically the Suez Canal. They can't do that if
on the border of the Sinai Peninsula.
Right. They can't do that if Gaza is full of Palestinians. Yeah. Whether this is true or not, I've seen various reports. It does say that, but I haven't seen anything concrete at the moment. But what are the reasons? Why are they driving Gazans out and trying to force them into Egypt? Because they said, okay, go north. We won't bomb you there. The first thing they did when all the people got there together is they bombed that area right next to the fucking border. So, maybe I'm a little bit biased. Some people might say anti-Semitic. I think that what the Nazis did to the Jews in the Second World War is now being done to the Palestinians by the Israelis. It's a genocide, basically. I'm sorry. It's all very well to hunt Hamas and get rid of them. I agree. But at the cost of what? At what cost? The cost of every person living in Gaza. And on the other side, every child that loses a relative is a future terrorist. Yeah. So I'm just thinking that Netanyahu is doing this for his right-wing supporters to say, I have an iron hand, I protect the Israelis, I protect you. Okay, great, he's protecting them. But his favor on the world stage now has gone so far down, and Israel's has gone so far down, I don't know that they'll ever get it back to where it was before. I mean, they worked very well like before. What's it going to be like afterwards? Yeah.
Well, and I don't know how you are on time. I just want to make sure you're okay. I think we've got a few. We're good on our end. But when we start to bring China into the picture, I think things are awful quiet right now, with the exception there may be some chatter about Taiwan here and there. But my spidey sense is going off with regards to China while we're focusing our attention and our resources to the east, or to the Middle East and to Ukraine.
Why'd you have to go there? It's like we don't have enough problems already.
It's our job to lay it out there for our listeners and our viewers, because I do believe that a majority of the people are walking around with their head in the sand.
We're distracted. There's so much information, so much.
Well, we've got TikTok, and then there's misinformation with that.
We're told what country to support.
Yes,
not be objective or look at both sides. Or
I suspect that in some circles, what we're discussing right now is people are not going to enjoy. They don't like to hear the truth.
Yeah, or the other side.
I don't know what the answer to that is. Time will tell. It's nothing compared to what Costas is had to go through and currently faces on a day-to-day basis. And while we're talking about world politics, I think we were talking about China, right?
Right.
Yeah,
and
right.
I find I do like getting the perspective of an international arms dealer, as opposed to my neighbor across the barbed wire fence who has been watching CNN or Fox.
And he's been on his keyboard.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
It is interesting, though, to hear that perspective. Here we go.
I really think that the Biden government is kicking the dust up with China, Taiwan, basically, one, to sell the weapons to China, to Taiwan, sorry, not to China, to Taiwan. Two, to keep the focus of the Ukraine and your borders. Four, to pump more money in that area and basically let the infrastructure of the US go down the drain, because you've got bigger problems at home. You don't need, I mean, China is not good, don't get me wrong. Their policy is to gradually take over everything. And that's always been Chinese. The Silk Road Initiative, the old one. And now we have them, they bought up the whole port in Piraeus in Greece. It's now owned by the Chinese Costco. They paid for the harbor renovations, a new harbor in Mombasa. Now, the Kenyans couldn't pay it back, so basically the port belongs to the Chinese. There are many cases of that happening. Chinese will go into a country and offer financial and economical help. And when the country can't pay their fees, then they say, "Okay, don't worry, we'll take this and run it for you. We'll lease it for 99.9 years, and whatever we make, you get a little bit of that." That's the way China works, unfortunately.
They're doing the same thing not only with the seaports, but it's general infrastructure. For example, I think Dar es Salaam is also one that they've approached, and plus they've also they build all their roads now, and they just like they've tried to do here in Texas. Mm-hmm. So I think that's very telling of where China, I believe, is.
And it's non-threatening. It's very
innocuous.
Innocuous, correct.
Yeah.
And it's like I mentioned, Las Vegas, the same thing in Vegas. It's owned by most of the Chinese corporations.
Well, this is something that's going to get a lot. It's going to become more and more proliferant. They will buy. Mm-hmm. The thing is with Chinese, there are no private companies. Every company belongs to the Chinese government. Yeah.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
Which means that, for example, I read an article about them buying up 42,000 hectares right next to a military base. Somebody bought it, turned out to be a Chinese company. You guys start selling your agricultural land to the Chinese next to military bases, you're asking for trouble. Yeah, so I mean, this really needs looking at. I mean, know thy enemy is all I can say. As far as Taiwan is concerned, I think Biden is using this as a smokescreen to take pressure off him and his government for the fuck up they've made in Ukraine, and basically to try and keep the people's attention somewhere else. As far as the Chinese are concerned,
I'd like to ask you,
sure, go ahead, Bob.
Since you're talking politics, I've got to ask this. You mentioned our current president. What is your take on the next president? Who you think would be a better president for the U.S.
From the
other candidates like Trump?
Let me put it this way: anyone's better than the one you've got at the moment. The guy's a decrepit, senile old fool. I'm sorry to talk about your president like that, but he is. It's not him who's running your country, it's the guys behind him. Somebody's pulling the strings. But I won't go down that road because it's your country, it's your politics. It's for you guys to vote him out and get a president in that you would prefer to have. In my opinion, as far as being a European is concerned, Trump is not very favorative to the Europeans, especially the Greeks. At the moment, we have, as far as the Greeks are concerned, they have a very good government in the US. Bob Menendez, who was against the F-35s and the F-16s going to Turkey. I'm talking regional now as opposed to global. For Europe, for the Greek government especially, the government that they have at the moment is possibly the best one for them. But that's not the point. The point is, it's you guys. It's your economy. It's your lives on the line. And the political situation in the US at the moment is not particularly good as far as the borders are concerned and the amount of immigrants that you have coming in. So I think that you need a strong president to be voted in. I like Trump. Some say he's a little bit of a crazy. So what? Yeah, the guy's a businessman. He will get a deal done with anybody. Yeah, he'll make sure it's on your side is better than the other side. But I think that if Trump was in, there wouldn't have been a war in Ukraine. It would have been stopped in the very beginning. Yeah. I don't really think that there are any other possibilities for a president. I mean, there's no one close. DeSantis, forget it. Yeah. These are my opinion now. Yeah. My personal
I'm curious to get your
my
perspective.
personal opinions. What I like is, I don't even know if she's running. What's her name? Green? Marjorie Green?
No, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh, yeah, no, she's not running. Nikki Haley is the other one that
she is
the press seems to say.
She is a useless twat who is a tool of the establishment.
Tell us how you really feel about that.
She was useless at the UN. She's useless in whatever position she's in. I doubt seriously whether she's any good horizontally in a horizontal position either. Yeah, but that, once again, is my opinion. And as we're on an American podcast, I have the right to free speech. So
listen to that. Very good, very good. You seem to be well informed about what's going on out here in our politics.
Well, I have to. I'm an international arms dealer. I have to deal with you guys, not you personally, but the government of the U.S. And your country and the way that things are moving. Like who's moving what where. I have to try and look into the future, 3, 4, 5 years ahead, to find out where the deals are to be made. Yeah. So
Kostas is in my view, he is the sum of all of his parts, and by that I mean the vast experience he has in all the different things that you've done in your life that led you to this point where you are now. The latter portion of your life being as an international arms dealer, and as I mentioned earlier, you've been everything from a medic to a social worker. In fact, there's a story in our book or in your book that your biography that I wanted to mention and get your feedback on because I think it really helped shape or had a large part to play in who you are today. And I'm pulling it up right now.
What is the name of the book?
For our listeners, and we're going to list the book in the notes section of this podcast. We'll provide the link to it. But it's called A Criminological Biography of an Arms Dealer. It's written by a gentleman by the name of Yaron Esky. And he's done a fantastic job. I have read the book. I will tell you that it's a difficult read through the first 2 chapters because it is an academic book. The first 2 chapters really go into the methodology, how the author arrived at his conclusions, what his thought process was behind why he was writing it the way he did, the challenges that he personally had with some of the material, which we haven't even begun to scratch the surface on. We're getting a 35,000 foot view right now from Costa, and I'm quite positive that there's going to need to be a follow-on show because there's so much that we haven't talked about.
Yes.
But Costa, I think and since you've already mentioned it earlier in the show, you were in Ireland in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, correct? And I believe there was a turning event in your life when you went to go get in an automobile and found out that for some reason someone was hoping that you were not going home that day.
Yeah. I was luckily in the back, not in the front. The driver lost his 2 legs. The other guy in the front lost his arms. The one guy in the back was killed. I crawled out of I was lucky actually. I only got some facial problems, and I crawled out of the car after it exploded and turned over. I crawled out, and someone took a pot shot at me and ricocheted off the door, and I still got a piece of the bullet in my leg. Yeah.
Now, for our younger listeners and viewers, they're not going to be able to draw that connection like Robert and some of our older viewers can. But can you kind of explain, give a little bit of a background about why all of a sudden you were in a car in an area in Ireland? Because most of our Americans today are like, oh, Ireland, it's green and it's pretty,
Right.
and they don't realize what Ireland has had to go through in the past, 100 years to get where they're at.
800 years. 800 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it was the Troubles. It was the war. It was the Catholics against the Protestants. It was the British government against freedom. It was a myriad of things. There were terrorist acts committed on the streets daily in Belfast.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things. In the folks of war, everybody somehow gets injured, whether that's physically or psychologically. Yeah. I don't really want to go back that far.
That's
It's
well, you and I have never had to experience anything like that in our lifetime. I mean, think about how fortunate we are in so many respects to be where we are. But then we have conversations like we do today, and we kind of go, "Wait a minute,
Right.
how do the two mix?"
We don't have to worry about checking underneath our car for a bomb when we.
Not yet.
well, I
Not
have
yet.
to do that daily here is check under my car. Somebody wants to cut through my brake lines. I've had threatening phone calls as an arms dealer, threatening phone calls saying, yeah, you're not going to sell to these fuckers. If you sell to them, it'll be the last deal you make, which was how I managed to get the license to carry. It's very easy, very nice for you guys in Texas where I think you have open carry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
we don't have anything like that in Europe. I was lucky enough to get a carry permit for myself and for my family. Coming back to Ireland, okay, it was the time of, they called it the Troubles. It wasn't Troubles, it was a fucking war. It was the hope and prayers of a suppressed, repressed population, Catholics, who never had a chance in the Protestant world to get a good job, a better house, second-class citizens, basically. And after a while, they said, that's it, okay, 1916, we took Southern Ireland back. It's now independent, but it's not, because the British government still has a say in it. I don't know now whether Ireland will ever be a free island, especially now with the Brexit, where the UK has come out of the European Union. I think that we'll possibly see some movement in that area because of the stipulations that the European Union has thrown down to the Brits. I would personally like to see a free Ireland. I'd like to see Ireland as a whole. But the Brits won't allow it. They say, no, we have British people in Ireland have the right to vote, as they did in the Falklands. We want to remain part of England. And that was where the trouble started. Yeah. It was a bad time. Very bad time.
Going back to what I said earlier, you are the sum of all your parts. I know you as the type of person who does exactly what they say they're going to do, no more, no less, usually. Definitely no less than what you say. Man of integrity and honesty, sometimes brutally honest, which is refreshing in many cases. And I say all that because what we don't really have time to talk about today, and that I would like to cover sometime in the future. I suspect, if you're okay with it, we'll do another one of these little get-togethers and change the topics and dive a little bit deeper into your background, as far as not where you're from and where you've been necessarily, but your childhood and your family. And I bring that up and then making the assumption that you're okay talking about it in a limited capacity because you were able to share some of that in the book. But being the sum of all your parts, your childhood and your formative years, definitely here in the States, you would have people saying, automatically labeling you as somebody who is prone to become a criminal because of the childhood that you had growing up, and again being blown up in a war.
Yeah.
It precludes, most people would try to make a logical leap
Mm-hmm.
to, he's got all the makings of somebody that should be a bad guy.
Right.
He's been mistreated, had an abnormal childhood, home life was not the best.
People trying to kill him.
People trying to kill him. And oh, by the way, you happen to know better than most criminals how to run that business. But yet here you are today sitting in front of us, a 5-time cancer survivor, okay, and you still, let me back up. All of that would add up to you have motive to be the bad guy, make a whole lot of money, and get on down the road. But yet you have still chosen to maintain the moral, well, you've maintained the high ground with respect to your personal morals and values. I don't think our listeners and viewers are going to be able to comprehend how you're able to do that like you do and still be alive, quite frankly.
It's been a difficult journey, John. It's been a difficult journey. But what should I say? Very sarcastically, I'm still trying to gain points with him up there so that I don't have to go down there. How's that?
That's a very fair statement. That's a very fair statement.
I could have been a really bad person. I was a really bad person at the time. I was a really, really bad person at the time. I could have been a lot worse and I could have stayed there. And as you say, I could probably made a very, very good criminal enterprise. But the rewards are not worth the trouble, to be quite honest. And for me personally, after seeing so much suffering and tears of children who just witnessed either their father or mother or brother or whatever blown up, and realizing, this is shit. This is really shit. Let's do something right. Let's make sure it's right. Make sure it's legal. Okay, it might not be morally legal, but it's my morals. I have to live with what I do. I have to answer to the great architect. Let's put it that way. And if I make a mistake, it's my mistake. I don't want to hurt anybody else. Do unto others what you would have them do to you. Yeah. And that's my outlook on life. I try to live by it every day. I don't necessarily always succeed, but it's who I am and who I will continue to be until the day I die. I'm still on chemo every day, chemo tablets, so I've still got this fucking cancer. But so what? I could walk across the road tomorrow and get run over and be dead. It's just part of life, everybody dies someday. Some people die earlier, some people die later, some people die from cancer, some people die from getting shot. Everybody dies. It's just a question of making the most out of what you got and live every minute as if it's your last. That's basically how I see life.
It sounds like you've lived a very interesting life, and while you've had the challenges, Costa, you've also had a lot of blessing, it sounds like. Appreciate your...
I've always had a lot of good people by me, and at the moment, my wife, she stood by me through thick and thin. You know her, John.
Yes, sir.
Don't call me sir. Audencio. I work for a living.
He does that to me every time.
I work for a living. Don't call me sir.
It's ingrained in him.
I don't think the Queen or rather the King now will ever knight me, so there's really no need to call me sir. No, as far as life is concerned, okay. I mean, there are a couple of things I would have changed, but as you say, John, it's what I've been through, that path, the journey from then until now that's made me what I am. If I decided that I would be able to change a couple of things, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have this outlook that I have. And as far as the arms deals are concerned, okay, you want to go more into my childhood. Well, all right, I mean, we can do that if you want at a later date, yeah. I mean, we can touch on...
Yeah, sure.
I think our listeners and our viewers, I'm predicting that we're going to have a run on people wanting to know more about you, because I mean you've been there and you've done that, and the fact that you're willing to share at this stage of the game with everything that's going on in the world, I think people are going to be really interested in this.
Well, John, and I think having said that, if people wanted to learn more about Costa, is it fair to promote his book?
Oh, that's the whole idea.
A Criminological Biography of an Arms Dealer.
Correct.
If you want to learn more about this man here who's visiting with us today, that'd be a start.
It would be a great start. In fact, I'll assign it to all of you as homework. It's available on Amazon. You're able to get it the electronic version or the hard copy version. I believe you can also rent it on Amazon for about a month at a time. The last time I looked, I think it was $15 or $18 to rent. You could buy an electronic version for $35 to $38, I believe, and the hardbound copy is roughly $55.
I'm catching a flight today, and I'm going to download it myself. So I'll read it.
I'll put that link in the show notes, folks. Please go out and make that small investment. And Costa's probably too proud to say this, but this money that he earns from this book does not go in his pocket.
I don't earn any money from this book, John. I do not get any royalties. The author gets...
There we go.
No, hold on. Let me get this straight. The author gets the royalties. I'm legally not... He's legally not required to give me any money whatsoever, but we did have an agreement that any royalties that were made, he would split with me in half. And I said, no, I don't want the money. You can send it to my daughter in the UK. Yeah, so...
Beautiful. And the author is Yarin Eski. Am I pronouncing it right?
Yarin Eski. Yeah, he's a professor in the university.
Yarin Eski. Excellent. What a show.
I'm very rarely am I at a loss for words. I'm very excited, and I'm feeling very blessed right now because this is actually a very big deal.
Yes.
To be able to have this discussion so openly and frankly, especially with somebody like Costa. I'm just a little concerned we're not going to know how to handle the request for more information. So, folks, share this wide with your contacts. Make sure to tag us in your social media. I don't really want to come across sounding like all these other people by saying hit the like button, ring the bell, but you have to.
You have to. And this is someone that you'd like more people to know about, a life that is very interesting, and a perspective, a global perspective that is something you should share and definitely get to know more about.
Now,
not everyone knows an international arms dealer.
Well, and having said that, good chance that this will not appear on YouTube. I do believe that this show will need to be on Rumble almost exclusively, though we can include bits and pieces on YouTube. But because of the topic and the nature of the conversation, and why a large portion of the Western world does not know really what's going on or have the opportunity to get an international take on what's going on in the world. The news is different over there than it is here.
Of course.
Right. So it'll be on Rumble for sure in the full version, as will any of the other subsequent shows that we do. So, but still, please make sure that you do what you can to support our show, because we have spent a lot of time and a lot of money, of our personal money,
right,
to put this together.
and to bring to people perspectives, not just our perspective,
Right.
or we're not sponsored or funded by a media group. It's raw and unedited here, and we're here to bring you information from not just our local county, from all over the world, and you decide what you want to believe, what you want to research further.
So, folks, we thank you so much for joining us. I do anticipate being able to do another episode sometime here in the near future. We will keep you up to date on that. But until then, we wish you the best of a happy holidays, a happy New Year. It may be after the New Year by the time we get this put out, but just know that we're thinking of everybody, and we hope that everybody was safe over the New Year's holiday.
We are the Texas Examiner, and I'm Robert Sines.
I'm John Tipton.